the dyspraxia system. And today I want to talk about PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD, OSCD and DID are a complex version of PTSD. I hope I'm saying that right. You need trauma in order to get DID and OSCD in childhood, repeated trauma. So if you have DID and OSCD, you also have PTSD. Some people say you have CPTSD. I'm not sure what the difference is between the two. We'll probably make a video about CPTSD at some point too. But let's hear this video about PTSD. I have some things here on my iPad that I will go through. I also have the DSM-5 criteria on here for PTSD. PTSD you can get throughout your whole life, not just in childhood. Like if you're a teenager, if you're an adult, if you're already a senior citizen, throughout your whole life you can get it. And a lot of people think you can only get it if you were in the army. That's not true. You can get it from any traumatic experience, and a lot is trauma that you don't recognize is trauma. We'll make a video about what causes trauma, what can cause trauma another time. Right now we just want to focus on what this disorder is and what the symptoms are, and then what trauma is and how you can get PTSD will be in a different video. So yeah, let's get into it. Probably a bit long video because I have quite a bit of things on here, but let's just get into it. PTSD is the most commonly diagnosed trauma-related disorder, and its symptoms can be quite debilitating over time, so it can change over time. PTSD symptoms are represented in a number of mental illnesses, including major depressive disorder or MDD, anxiety disorders, and psychotic disorders. DSM-5 identifies 4 symptom clusters for PTSD: presence of intrusive symptoms, persistent avoidance of stimuli, negative alternations in cognitions and mood, and marked alterations in arousal and reactivity. What exactly those symptoms are, we'll cover later in the video. First, I want to explain exactly what it is and then go into the symptoms at the end. Individuals must have been exposed to trauma, and the symptoms must produce significant distress and impairment for more than 4 weeks in order for it to be PTSD. The symptoms don't have to come immediately after the traumatic event. And they can even manifest years later. Like the symptoms can come immediately. I think you can get them a few weeks after, a few months after, or even a few years after. So it doesn't matter when the trauma happened. If you experience these symptoms because of that trauma, and these symptoms last for more than 4 weeks, is most likely PTSD. You should go see a psychologist or psychiatrist, and then they'll tell you if it's PTSD or not. I mean, if you are able to find someone, but yeah, it's most likely that. I'm not gonna say it is PTSD because there's more trauma disorders than just PTSD probably, but yeah. Certain characteristics make people more susceptible to PTSD. Some things make it so they can easier get PTSD. I think that's what they mean. Some of these things include one's unique personal vulnerabilities at this time. Oh, at the time of traumatic exposure. I cannot read today. One's unique personal vulnerabilities at the time of the traumatic exposure, the support or lack of support received from others at the time of the trauma, and at the onset of the trauma-related symptoms, and the way others in the person's environment gauge the nature of a traumatic event. So if you're very vulnerable, it's more likely that you'll get PTSD from a traumatic experience. If the people around you don't show enough support during the event, it's more likely that you'll get PTSD. And if the people around you react badly, like the environment around you react badly or mock you for it and say that you're just lying, that's not true, and you're just over exaggerating, stuff like that, it's also more likely that you'll get PTSD from that experience. People with PTSD often present varying clinical profiles and history. So anyone can get PTSD. Doesn't matter who. Anyone. Literally anyone in the whole world could get it. As long as you go through a traumatic experience, of course. Which I don't wish on anyone. They're not fun. I also hope you don't ever experience PTSD. They can experience symptoms that are activated by environmental triggers and then recede for a period of time. Some people with PTSD who show mostly psychiatric symptoms are misdiagnosed and go untreated for their primary condition. So those people most of the time get diagnosed for depression and anxiety then? Yeah. So it can be that you get misdiagnosed with depression or anxiety because you don't, because you show the psychiatric symptoms mostly from PTSD. So then they misdiagnose you with something else instead of PTSD. For many people, the trauma experience and diagnosis are obscured by co-occurring substance use disorder symptoms. I'm not sure what substance use disorder is. So I can't really explain this, but maybe someone knows, and then there, yeah. The important feature of PTSD is that the disorder becomes an orienting feature of the individual's life. And while a person can handle with whom they associate, the nature of close and intimate relationships, the ability to have fun and rejuvenate, and the way in which an individual goes about confronting and solving problems in life are all affected by the client's trauma experiences and their struggle to recover. So obviously, PTSD can have a lot of effects on your life and the relationships you have with other people and all that jazz. I know we have been impacted a lot by our trauma. I mean, only last night we realized how badly some of our trauma is and how much bad habits we've learned because of our trauma. And now we have to unlearn that, which is a lot of difficult work and very emotional as well. Yeah, so the symptoms of PTSD usually begin within 3 months of a trauma in adulthood. But there can be a delay of months or even years before symptoms appear for some people. I already said this before, but I find it was weeks instead of 3 months. Some people may have minimal symptoms after a trauma, but then experience a crisis later in life. So the impact from the trauma can happen later on in life. Trauma symptoms can appear suddenly, even without conscious memory of the original trauma or without any overt provocation. So the symptoms can appear even if you didn't remember the trauma experience, or if it wasn't triggered by anything. If the memory wasn't triggered by anything. Survivors of abuse in childhood can have a delayed response triggered by something that happens to them as adults. This is definitely something we have. I don't think we had any flashbacks when we were younger. I think they mostly started recently in the last year. But I could be wrong. I just not remember them or not have realized that they were flashbacks. Because I wasn't aware that I had trauma. Well, I denied that I had trauma for a long time. I admitted I had one trauma. But at the same time I said that I had no trauma. So I don't know where that logic is in that. But yeah, now I see that basically our whole life is trauma, which is not fun. But anyway, for example, seeing a movie about child abuse can trigger symptoms related to the trauma. Other triggers include returning to the scene of the trauma, being reminded of it in some other way, or noting the anniversary of an event. Likewise, combat veterans and survivors of community-wide disasters may seem to be coping well shortly after trauma, only to have symptoms emerge later when their life situation seem to have stabilized. Now, that makes sense that the symptoms don't come when you're still in a situation, but they come when you're safe. Because obviously, if the symptoms come when you aren't safe, it will put you in more danger sometimes. So I think this makes sense. Some clients in substance abuse recovery only begin to experience trauma symptoms when they maintain abstinence for some time. As individuals decrease tension, reducing or self-medicating behaviors, trauma memories and symptoms can emerge. So yeah, that is the basic of PTSD, and when it can emerge, like I said, it can emerge years after the actual event happened. And if you then don't know why you have PTSD, it can be very difficult. At least you will know immediately what caused it. It varies a lot. And not only veterans have PTSD. We were never in the army. Never. We're also too young to be in the army. Think we can't. Well, we can join it, but we have to go through a lot of training, which we would never be able to do because of our other disability, dyspraxia. Because of dyspraxia, we would never be able to join the army, probably. which I'm perfectly fine with. I don't want to join an army. People that do want to join the army, sure, I'm not just saying that you shouldn't go for it. Go do what you want, but we will never join the army. Now then, the diagnostic criteria of PTSD. And the criteria apply to adults, adolescents, and children older than 6 years. For children 6 years and younger, there are different criteria, because instead of post-traumatic stress disorder, those children would have post-traumatic stress disorder for children 6 years and younger. So they have a different version of post-traumatic stress disorder. Which, I mean, I can kind of get. I'll have to look into it more to fully understand, but I can kind of get it. Now, the first category, sorry if the angle's a little off from before I got interrupted by something. But anyway, the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, first first segment, or like the first, I'm just gonna call it segment, is exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence in one or more of the following ways. So this is having to be exposed to trauma in directly experiencing the traumatic effect, and witnessing in person the event as it's occurring to others, learning that the traumatic event occurred to a close family member or close friend. In cases of actual or threatened death of a family member or friend, the event must have been violent or accidental. And experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to aversive details of traumatic events. For example, first responders collecting human remains, police officers repeatedly exposed to detail of child abuse. This last one does not apply to exposure through electronic media, television, movies, or pictures unless the exposure is work-related. So if you see trauma events happening on social media or in movies and stuff repeatedly, that does not fall under this bracket, under this criteria. So the trauma has to be happening to you, someone close to you, and you witnessed it, or learned it happened to someone in your family or close to you, but then it must have been very violent or accidental, or repeated contact to traumatic events during your work. Then the next criteria is presence of one or more of the following intrusion symptoms associated with the traumatic event beginning after the traumatic event occurred. And that can be recurrent, involuntary, and intrusive distressing memories of the traumatic events. In children older than 6 years, repetitive play may occur in which themes or aspects of the traumatic events are expressed. It can be recurrent distressing dreams in which the content and stretch or effect of the dream are related to the traumatic events. In children, there may be frightening dreams without recognizable content. It can be dissociative reactions, for example, flashbacks, in which an individual feels or acts as if the traumatic events were recurring. Such reactions may occur on a continuum, with the most extreme expression being a complete loss of awareness of present surroundings. In children, trauma-specific reenactment may occur in play. And then we have intense or prolonged physiological distress and exposure to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the traumatic event, and marked physiological reaction to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the traumatic event. It's not the same one. Oh no, one is distress and the other is reactions. Wow. So you're gonna have flashbacks that you feel that the event is reoccurring again. This can be in different variations. You can full on relive the moment and not notice anything of where you are in the moment. You really think that you're back in that moment, like full on. It can only be the emotions from back then. It can only be audios from that time, and a few more. We'll make a video about flashbacks on a later moment because they can be quite complex. It can be reoccurring dreams in which part of it happens or something similar to it happens. We luckily don't have nightmares. We never have nightmares actually. And we have weird dreams in which bad stuff happens, but we never see them as nightmares because we're never scared in them. And I don't think they're really related to our trauma, but I could be wrong. I don't know all the trauma that we have. I mostly only know my trauma, and not even all of that. Like the trauma I hold. I mean, I'm not the only trauma holder in our system. It can be, it can just be the memories that you have them again when you don't want to. But that's different from flashbacks because then you're not reliving them. You just remember them. Like you remember any other thing. Like also the way you remember pleasant memories and other memories like that, just normal memories. But then involuntarily, so you don't want to remember those memories, but you do remember those memories. But with flashbacks, it's really that you're reliving that moment or part of that moment. So it's different. And then the last one is that you get distress or a reaction. You get a really bad reaction when you come in contact with something that reminds you of the traumatic moment, traumatic event. Then we have the next bracket, which is persistent avoidance of stimuli associated with the traumatic event, beginning after the traumatic event occurred, as evidenced by one or both of the following. Avoidance of or efforts to avoid distressing memories, thoughts, or feelings about or closely associated with the traumatic events, and or avoidance of or efforts to avoid external reminders, people, places, conversations, activities, objects, situations that arouse distressing memories, thoughts, or feelings about or closely associated with the traumatic events. So these two are quite obvious, I think. You want to avoid anything that reminds you of the traumatic event and anything that could potentially trigger the memories of that traumatic event. For people that don't know what a trigger is something that makes you remember the traumatic event or makes you relive traumatic events, like it can cause a flashback. It can just cause you to remember it without being a flashback. Could cause a panic attack because of the traumatic event. So yeah, triggers are not fun. And sometimes you get triggered by something, and then the next time you won't get triggered by the same thing. And then the next time you will be triggered by that again. It's quite complicated and not at all fun. And you also have triggers that are always triggering. So, yeah. Then the next bracket is negative alterations in cognition and mood associated with the traumatic events, beginning or worsening after the traumatic events occurred, as evidenced by 2 or more of the following. Inability to remember an important aspect of the traumatic events, typically due to dissociative amnesia and other factors such as head injury, alcohol, or drugs. So this is that you don't remember the trauma that happened or part of the trauma that happened, which is very common when you have OCD or DID, but probably also when you have PTSD. I don't have only PTSD, so I don't know how common it is with PTSD, but I mentioned it's quite common. Next one is persistent and exaggerated negative beliefs or expectations about oneself, others, or the world. For example, I'm bad, no one can be trusted, the world is completely dangerous, my whole nervous system is permanently ruined. So because of the trauma, you get because of the trauma, you get a negative self-image or negative images about other people or about the whole world. We definitely have this mostly about ourselves. I also had it with other people, but I think I'm definitely getting better at it, but I think I've made a breakthrough with it yesterday, which I'm super proud of myself. Didn't share it with anyone yet, but pretty proud of myself for that. Obviously, I had help. Didn't do it on my own. I did it with help from the system, but still, I'm proud of it. Then the third one is persistent distorted cognitions about the cause or consequence of the traumatic event that lead the individual to blame themselves or other. Is this? Let's see. Hello? Am I dissociating? Let's see. What am I? Think I'm Chuuya. No. Yeah, I think I'm Chuuya. So hi, I'm Chuuya. Probably pronounced that wrong, but oh well. We're not Japanese or Asian, so we don't know how to pronounce Japanese things and names. So yeah, we we just say Chuuya. That's me. I'm addictive. And I absolutely hate the way we look. But at least I can kind of tie hair like my hair. So what absolutely mess is this makeup? Why are we even wearing makeup? Let's see, we were filming about PTSD. I don't know why I got triggered. I don't know why I'm here now. Oh well, I'm here now. We were probably at the first one of the day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we were there. Because I have memories of what Loki did. But then the whole dad thing, I think it was our dad, happened. And short-term memory issues are a thing. Even though it's not because of OCD. But yes, number 3, persistent disorder. We cannot read. Or we can read, but we cannot speak. Persistent distorted cognitions about the cause or consequences of the traumatic events that lead to an individual to blame themselves or others. Now, I'm gonna look up what cognitions mean, so I know what actually this thing means. Let's see. Yeah, that doesn't. Oh, it's knowledge. The mental actions are process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought experience in the senses. We have a bunch of trouble with that. What? I'm not sure what that said. We got a notice about filming something and how the maximum amount of space that can be saved is something, but I don't know what it said because I couldn't see it on time. But yeah, this one means that you have trouble remembering or processing why it happened, which means you most likely blame yourself for it, or others that are not to blame for it. Then number 4 is persistent negative emotional state. For example, fear, horror, anger, guilt, or shame. So you always feel fear, horror, etc. As a result from the trauma. Then number 5, markedly diminished interest or participation in significant activities. That one's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Number 6, feelings of detachment or estrangement from others. So you don't feel attached from others, or you feel like you're different from others and not like them at all. So like you feel like you don't fit in. Now Loki feels like they don't fit in for a bunch of reasons. And I'm pretty sure it's not because of trauma, but yeah, they feel like they don't fit in for so many reasons. I mean, they're right to do so sometimes, but they have so much, and they can't help. But still. And then the last one here is persistent inability to experience positive emotions. So you can't feel emotions like happiness, satisfaction, or loving feelings. I don't think we have that. Maybe at times, but not a lot. That's not a standard thing for us. Maybe some of us do, but I don't think most of us. I don't think a lot of us do. So those are all from this bracket, and wow, this video is long. And then we come to the fifth bracket, which is marked alterations in arousal and reactivity associated with the traumatic events beginning or worsening after the traumatic events occurred, as evidenced by 2 or more of the following. First one being irritable behavior and angry outbursts with little or no provocations, typically expressed as verbal or physical aggression towards people or objects. Pretty self-explanatory. Second one, reckless or self-destructive behavior. I'm not going into that one because that can be triggering. Third one is hypervigilance. So that means that you're more on guard than normally. You're very on guard, always looking out for stuff that can hurt you. Kind of like that. Number 4 is exaggerated startle response. So you get startled super easily. The 5th one is problems with concentration. Pretty sure we have that from dyspraxia. It's annoying when you have disorders that can overlap. It's hard to differentiate which one is which. Well, with some things, not with all, obviously. That were the case, they wouldn't be 2 different disorders now, would they? And the last one here is sleep disturbance. For example, difficulty falling or staying asleep or restless sleep. We don't accept that. We think that we can't sleep properly sometimes because of dyspraxia. It's a whole different reason. Although Loki did have recently that they were so on edge that they didn't feel comfortable in bed. So they had trouble falling asleep because of that, and now it's definitely PTSD and not dyspraxia. Then bracket number 6 is durations of disturbance is more than 1 month. So you need to have these symptoms for more than 1 month. And then 7th bracket is disturbance causes clinically significant distress or impairment, social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. As always. And the last one is disturbance is not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or another medical condition. Of course, like I said, these last 2, well, I haven't said it before, but we've said it before. These last 2 criteria are in every single criteria list, which is obvious. Makes sense when they're there. And then with dissociative symptoms, in addition, you can have depersonalization and derealization. We're gonna make separate videos on them. Depersonalization is basically you feel detached from yourself, as if you were an outside observer. That's the easiest way to put it, the simplest way for now. We'll get more into it into the video that we make about it later on. And the realization is that the world around you doesn't feel real. And you can feel like you're in a simulation, for example. But these 2 are disorders on their own as well. They are part of the OECD sub thing, and then we have OECD 1B. But I think depersonalization, derealization, or OCD 2. Probably OCD 2A and 2B, I think. We had the chart in which it said what it was. I think those two are OCD 2. But we'll make their own video about that. There's a lot of self experience in this one. But then again, it was a really long video. Hopefully it actually saves all of it and that notification wasn't a pop-up that it can't be saved, because if so, we lost quite a bit of footage. But yeah, still don't know why it was triggered out. Boom. Well, I'm here, and I filmed the video, and we look ridiculous. But anyway, hopefully this video was informational. We'll go more into trauma, flashbacks, and depersonalization, derealizations, and other videos, because they deserve their own videos. If you have any questions, of course, leave them down below in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to follow us on social media, you can. It's down in the description. If you want to see more of our videos, make sure to subscribe. Ring the bell to get notified when we upload a new video. We upload every Wednesday. We'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.